Right, I think it's time to a Guinness World Record for the most number of people in a Zoom meeting. Are you saying? I've had more, to be honest. I had 410 on last Monday, so this is slightly less. If you just because I can already see questions from people about like, are you going to do this feature, etc. So just from the outset, feel free to ask specific questions about what I'm currently doing. So if I'm doing something on demonstrating how to set questions to students or something, then feel free to ask that, and I'll try to ask as I go along. So I have got the chat open. However, if you've got more general questions about, are you going to have questions from this exam board, or will you have Google Classroom integration, etc. If you could save that to the Q&A at the end. I'm here till like 5:30, so there'll be plenty of extra time at the end to ask me questions anyway. Yeah, so please don't ask specific questions until, more general questions about how you do stuff at the end, because there will be plenty of time for Q&A, just so I can get on with the presentation. Yeah, and some people were just saying last week that they found the chat a bit distracting, but I do have to keep it up. So if we could sort of slightly minimize use of the chat thread during it, just so it's not a distraction. But as I said, I don't mind if you want to ask specific questions about what I'm currently doing that I can answer quickly, then that's absolutely fine. Yep. Although I've muted everyone, I'm happy to, if you want to unmute yourselves later to ask a question, then that's absolutely fine as well. And as I say, I'm recording this, and this link to the presentation will be sent out probably tomorrow morning, basically. And it will be, I'll be also eventually putting some or all of those meetings on YouTube as well. Right, I hope everyone can hear me absolutely fine. And welcome to all the 320 people that have come today. I'm very grateful that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to come along and see this presentation. Now, I'm going to be quite brief in my slides, because I basically want most of this to be a demo and for you to be able to answer questions. But I've got some just nice slides to start with. So if you're not familiar with what Dr. Ross Maths is, it's a combination of a few things. So it's originally a kind of repository of slides and worksheets that I've made. So you've got slides on all the kind of A-level syllabus, all of GCSE topics, etc. So basically Key Stage 3 to 5, and that's what the site is sort of originally known for. Also a bunch of teaching videos, so I can't remember what the count of videos, about 300. But I'm actually making 1,000 new videos by September on to do with the key skills platforms, like worked example videos, which I'll get into later. And also, since about 3 years ago, it's also an online platform where students can practice questions, and you can set work to students and monitor their progress. So it's a combination of teachers setting the work and students also being able to independently practice themselves. So that's what it is. And in terms of the site structure, so some of this might be slightly new, even if you've actually been using the site for some time. But the main components of the site are this. You've got the downloadable resources, including, by the way, you might not know about the computer science platform. It's slightly well hidden, but there is a link to it in the main resource page, and also from the home page to that. So it's got slides for the entire OCR syllabus, pretty much, but also a bunch of like online testing rigs where students get set little mini tasks, and they get to run their code and so on. So you may want to check that out if you do teach computer science, or there's a computer science teacher in your school. In terms of utilities, the DFM whiteboard is something I've been putting more development effort into recently. It's still got some way to go, but I've been using it all the time with my classes during lockdown. I've also been trying to integrate it with the rest of my platform. For example, allowing students to show workings when they're doing a maths assignment on the site. And then obviously you've obviously got the questions as well. So you've got, there's two main components basically. So you've got the fixed question database with about 41,000 questions, mostly from exam boards, so EdExcel, AQA, OCR, Educast. In fact, they're adding the questions themselves, which is very generous of them. And I'm also pretty much the de facto official depository for UKMT questions. So these have a kind of broader topic structure. So for example, one of the topics is be able to use the sine and cosine rule to find lengths. Whereas the key skills platform, which I'll be demonstrating later, if I try and get, sorry, these windows out of the way. The key skills platform is much more fine-grained. So there'll be an individual skill for use a sine rule to find this side, etc. And for fractions, like very fine-grained on all the different types of skills you might have. And for these, they're going to be shorter worked example videos, which I've started, but I'm basically trying to get this ready for September. And then this, also, you might not know about the numeracy platforms. It's certainly no times table rock stars, but there is some kind of numeracy stuff there for students to practice their times tables, divide tables, powers, etc. And you've also got the analytics. You can export reports and see how students are doing as teachers. And then using these two different things, you've got the fixed questions database and the key skills platform. And by the way, these key skills questions are randomly generated. So we're basically making these random question generators for each very specific kind of skill to produce these questions. And both of these different question sets you can use for a variety of different ways. And by the way, the key skills platform, but I'll show you how it works, but like it produces really nice feedback for the student in terms of like, if they get it wrong, they know exactly how to do the question. And as I said, we've got these worked example questions as well. So I'm very excited about showing you this because it's a very cool thing. And the feedback from it so far has been really good from those who've been using it. Then you can also build and output worksheets. You can obviously sell these to students as an assessment or as a homework, or students can practice these themselves. You can also output to Word. I'll show you how to do that with a mark scheme. And then you've also got DFM Live, which many people, it's probably the best kept secret on the site. I've tried to make it more prominent, but you can sort of play it as a kind of Kahoot style game with a particular set of questions. So you can practice a, I don't know, GCSE foundation paper with Dr. Frost Live, which is quite cool. And we will be playing that later, and it works absolutely splendidly, even with like 400 people simultaneously. So you'll be quite impressed by that. So that's the general structure of the site. A bit about me. That picture was taken just a couple of days ago. So I'm secretly a computer scientist masquerading as a mathematician. I did a degree in computer science at Oxford. I then went into banking, survived about a year because before I couldn't bear it anymore. I then went back in to do a PhD back at my old college at Oxford in something called computational linguistics. That's how we can sort of use mathematics to analyze problems in language. So that was for 3 years. And then I was doing a lot of teaching there. I had some sort of Princeton undergraduates, but also doing teaching in the department. And I really absolutely loved doing that. So I thought, oh, maybe teaching's a profession for me. And I spent a week at my old school saying, oh, just teaching some lessons, basically observing, and realized that was what I wanted to do. And I've been teaching ever since. So that's kind of my history there. Yes, I hated investment banking. I was writing algorithmic trading strategies for bond traders, which sounds really exciting and interesting, but it wasn't. And yeah, also another unknown fact about me is that I failed 11 plus. So I took it, I didn't get in, and the school I went to had about, I think, a 32% A star to C GCSE rate, and the Ofsted report said pupils from a lower than average social background. So I come from moderately humble beginnings. We couldn't afford holidays abroad or anything at all like that. Yeah, I've sort of worked hard in terms of my education. Like my maths lessons, for example, I was just, because I was quite bright at maths, I was just given a blank exercise book and just said to get on with it. And he said, you don't have to take part in the lessons, but then provided with no resources. And that sort of partly motivated why I tried to make all my resources free, because had I not worked so hard and being quite self-reliant in terms of my own self-teaching, I wouldn't have done as well at school. And think, well, students of the same background, they might not have much money, or their schools might not have much money. I don't want my stuff to not be accessible to them, which is why I think it's very important that DFM is free and will always remain free. And in fact, I might be registering as a charity very soon, so I've already started the process of that. So yeah, it's partly a product of my own background that I want this stuff to be free to all students. Right. And yeah, I've been teaching for 8 years, so including my teacher training year. I did the school direct program. And yeah, there's basically 2 of us. So I'm a full-time teacher, but it's also, I have help with someone called Gayton, and he's in charge of the question database. And he also, I didn't realize until just a few months ago that he's actually a coder. So he's coding most of the sort of specific logic for the new key skills system, which I'll be showing you later. Oh, here's my flex side. Have you noticed suddenly the word flex has become a thing amongst students? It's part of the student vernacular now. So it's, oh, that's flexing, that's flexing. Anyway, this is me with Anita Rani. She's very nice. And that's on the National Teaching Awards on the BBC a couple of years ago. And then more recently, I've been shortlisted for the Global Teacher Prize. I'll find out next week if I'm in the top 10. So I'm in the top 50 at the moment. And that's me on Talk Radio. Well, I've never expected to be on a right-wing radio show giving a lesson on maths. So yeah, it's kind of an unusual gig. Oh, and I'm in the Financial Times next Monday. So in a week Monday, if you look in the Financial Times, there should be an article there, which is quite exciting. And just some stats, just for your interest. Yeah, it's quite amusing. That's the number of total page views in 2012 when I started teaching. I'll get that in about 5 minutes now on the site. And you can see it gradually increasing, hit the 1 million mark in 2016. I think that's when I started putting my resources on TES, although most people download them from my site nowadays. And then exponentially rising. I think I tried to fit an exponential curve to this, and the R value is 0.99. So yeah, I had 60 million in 2019. And I know I also tried to project that figure from about this time last year, and I was only 1% off. So if you think this figure is quite far-fetched of 410 million views in the year, just note that my projection is actually quite accurate, but that is a projection based on how many hits I've had so far and the sort of current growth rate. So you can see the site has massively expanded within the last couple of years, and certainly with the lockdown, it's massively expanded. And it's just I'm just really delighted quite how many schools and people are using the platform, which is why I've been doing such extensive, heavy development work at the moment in advance for September. And yeah, I've had to, just based on that volume of users, I've had to change servers. I'm now with Amazon Web Services. Server costs, you might not realize, are 5 figures a year now. So it's not a cheap business. And I've also had to recode everything just to quite cope with those numbers. In terms of resource downloads, those are the slides, the PowerPoints that I've produced, like your kind of GCSE A-level PowerPoints, etc. That's also been expanding recently quite a lot. So I've had, I think it's 7.1 billion now. It's just because it's going up so rapidly at the moment. And in terms of questions answered on the online platform, we're up to, yeah, that figure's already out of date because it's going up by hundreds of thousands every day at the moment. So a lot of students answering a lot of questions. And yeah, a lot of schools. So over 6,500 schools have a registered account on the site. So someone's registered at that school and logged on at some point since September 2018. Obviously, certain schools are using it a lot more than others. It might be at some schools you just got a couple of users, whereas other schools, it's like the staple of their maths department, basically. So a large variation in the amount of usage, and that's absolutely fine. Some people just use it for the tools on there, and some people are basically setting all their assignments on there. And also it's expanding internationally as well. So obviously the biggest usage in England, but Malaysia, like that's what, 13 million points in terms of correct answers. And then United Arab Emirates as well, way out ahead. So those are 2 particular countries that's popular. And both of those countries I'll be visiting next year as part of my tour. I was supposed to be visiting this year, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, as well, and I think there's one other, but I obviously had to cancel that tour because of the whole lockdown, which is quite sad. Right, and DFM 3.0 is basically the big thing that's been worked on since the start of the Easter holidays, and actually a lot of it is done now in terms of like redoing all the interfaces and such. And the last thing of that is a key skills platform, which I'll go into. So I'm very open to criticism of the site and open to feedback, and generally I respond to it by actually sort of implementing it. So I recognize, for example, that the old version of the site wasn't particularly user-friendly, and that was mostly a function of such heavy development over the years and like lots of new features being tapped on all the time. And really I had to take a step back and sort of think about how it all fitted together. And I kind of feel like because there's such positive feedback about the new interface that people are finding it much simpler to use and finding it much easier to find various things on there. So I think I largely addressed that. And another criticism is as well is that the topic structure was was a bit too broad. So I needed to sort of subdivide the topics a bit more. And it was fine, for example, if like a student had already learned a topic, like had a sequence of lessons on something, and then wanted to practice a broad mix of questions on that, but not so good maybe if they've just learned a very specific thing in a lesson and wanted repetitive practice on that particular kind of question. And that's what the key skills platform that has already been released and still in ongoing development was trying to address. So yeah, I completely take that on. I have taken that on board and been developing new functionality for that. And also I did a survey on what features students, what teachers were using on the platform. And I found that the least used feature was the DFM whiteboard. Like no one was using it, but I kind of felt like it had really good potential. So I've been thinking about how to integrate that with various parts of the existing platform. And I think I've come up with some very novel ways of doing so, which I'll be showing you. And that is, it's interesting that basically then the lockdown happened, and obviously that's been used a lot more for obvious reasons, the whiteboard. And also just increasing with the traffic that was coming to the site. I get like 1.2 million page views a year, which is a lot of page views, a lot of traffic. I think I was briefly in the top 200 most visited sites in the UK for quite a period, and I think I still am. So you think all the thousands and millions of sites out there, that's pretty impressive. So I've had to sort of think about how I've optimized code, and I've rewritten a lot of it to make everything a lot more efficient. So how have I addressed these? The first thing is a key skills platform. So you can see like this is like plotting points, coordinates in a Cartesian grid, so in the first quadrant. So there'd be a skill, for example, for plotting it, but also a skill for here's a point, what's the coordinate? Whereas before that would have been like one sort of broader skill. So it's taken these very specific question types and randomly generating questions for those so that students can practice with very detailed feedback, as well as a worked example video, which I've been gradually working on. So we've got, that figure's already out of date. We're up to 300 now. Key skills, so 3 different specific types of questions, and our target, which I think we'll reach, is 1,000 key skills by September, each of those with a worked example video of no more than 4 minutes, because I want these videos to be short so students don't lose attention. So that's a really exciting thing, and I'll be really glad to show you that later. So here's just some of the types of questions, like solving a linear equation with unknown on both sides. Like this is this is all dynamically generated from a random question, which is really quite cool. So students will be able to practice an infinite number of these kind of questions. Here's another one, like they're given this frequency table and they have to plot a cumulative frequency graph from that. There's also a variant where they're given the cumulative frequency table and have to plot the graph, which is a bit easier. There's also variants where they're given a graph and they have to like read off in the interquartile range or the median. And the point is with this key skills platform is that we have individual separate skills for all of these rather than being clumped in one topic. So I think it works much better. And the code behind this is quite advanced. And this is sort of a joke one. You may remember the Hannah's Sweets question from 5 years ago. Like every year, if you know Graham Cummings, he sort of posts like, it's the anniversary of the Hannah's Sweets question. And on that day, I made a random Hannah's Sweets question generator. So this is one of the key skills, form an equation using sampling without replacements. This is one of the harder skills. You can see it's quite like the Hannah's Sweets question. I think it randomizes the name, it randomizes the colors, the type of object, whether it's sweets or marbles or whatever. And also it's random in terms of whether it's the total number of objects that's unknown or the specific number of a particular color that's unknown. And you can see this is all feedback is dynamically generated from code. So it's quite a clever system indeed. And also I've been gradually replacing interfaces. So this is the old dashboard. Wait, there's a question here. Let me look at this. Can you take questions from different key skills and create a mixed topic worksheet? That's a very good question, Andy. And basically, that's something once these meetings over this fortnight is over, that's the very next feature I'm doing. Because at the moment, you can set key skills tasks, but it picks random questions for all the students, whereas I'll be making it so you can create a worksheet of a fixed set of key skills. So although they're initially random, you can fix them. So here's a random set of questions, but once that's fixed, then those students will get the same worksheet. And Debbie, I'll be showing that how you get a video for a particular key skill. Right, enough of questions for the moment. I'll answer the other ones later. But this is the old dashboard, and it was just quite hard to find anything in terms of like, well, how do you set work is here, but you have to sort of find it, and there's like all these sort of sub menus and sub menus within sub menus, and it was just a bad interface. So I completely replaced it, and now you still got that kind of notification feed like on Facebook, but it's much clearer. You just have these clear, nice tiles, and the students have something similar where it describes exactly what each piece of functionality is. You just click a button, it goes to that part of the site, and like, oh, you've got the latest homework here, and you can see it immediately by clicking it, etc. Oh, you've got all your settings here. It's just much clearer, I think, than it was. And I've literally redone every single interface. So the progress interface is now much clearer with just a single drop down to get switched between the different things. And there was a menu on the left before, which is now gone. So it's just more spacious and more space for data, etc. As you saw, this new question interface, that's brand new. That's all been completely redone, and etc. Wait, there's a question here. How can you see how long the student's been doing the work? I'll be showing you that later when I show you the progress interface, so don't worry. Right, so let's go back forward. Yeah, and the whiteboard I was talking about, I had some brainwave. Well, what about if the students actually had a mini side whiteboard when they're doing questions and they could scribble on that, partly so they have somewhere to do some working if they don't have a piece of paper, but also it means that if you set a homework, you can now require working, in which case they have to write something there, and it actually records that. So this is a year 9 test we did last week, end of year test, and you can see that there's a question, you can see their answer, which they input into the sort of like input box, but then you've also got their working. And by the way, another new feature, which I only did maybe a month or so ago, is you can now actually have partial marks, and you can overwrite marks and say, oh, they should have got 3 out of 4 of this for this particular question. What do they use to write the whiteboard? Well, if they've got a touch sensitive screen, then they can use that. Otherwise, I just use my mouse. It depends what input device they have, basically. And also the whiteboard, like there's annotate buttons everywhere, and I'll show you. But if you view a particular question and click this annotate button, it then loads it directly in the whiteboard so you can annotate this. So I've been using this a lot for remote lessons. And the question about problems on the iPad, it affects certain versions of iPad software. And don't worry, I'm very aware of that. And I'm basically doing a big push for like looking at all the different devices and making sure the touch sensitivity is all right and it's not misaligned and things. So I'm aware of there's a kind of few problems with certain device types, and don't worry, I'm on top of that. I will be addressing that soon. And the thickness of the pen, I might have a thickness slider. It tries to be slightly organic by having the width adjust to how fast you're stroking. And I've tried to reduce that a bit because people were a bit tentative about that, but I can still sort of adjust that further or have controls for that, so don't worry. And in terms of catering for different ability levels, I think that's particularly where the Key Skills platform is trying to address the sort of slight absence of questions for low ability Key Stage 3 students. There were questions there, but unless as a teacher you were setting specific questions to students as a worksheet, then it could slightly be potluck what students could get because it was a bit too broad. So that's where the Key Skills platform is trying to address. So this is just a sort of breakdown of what's available in terms of questions. So the key skills, well, the sort of easiest stuff from like literally starts from number bonds and place value and stuff, all the way up to the harder stuff in the GCSE higher tier syllabus. We're also, by the way, we are doing Key Stage 5 stuff, and there's someone I've sort of hired on to sort of write some questions for that. And also you've got the main question database. So these are the fixed questions of like Excel, that kind of questions. So for Key Stage 2 and 3, I've got all this kind of past paper SATs questions on there. And then for the higher ability, you've got primary maths challenge, the key stage 2, and you've got all the JMC papers back to 1997. And by the way, the workings thing, that there's a slight bug if they've written some text with the text tool, it cuts it off. I know that about that bug, and I will be resolving it. It should crop it to the part of the whiteboard they've used, so you don't have unnecessary white space around it. But there's a slight problem with if they've written text on it, which I'm going to fix soon. Key stage 4, GCSE. Again, the key skills platform goes from like the very easiest stuff to the hardest stuff. And then you've got all the past papers for Edexcel, etc. I think Edexcel goes all the way back to 2001. That's where I've got most papers, but I do have papers for AQA, etc. And for any Irish or Northern Irish teachers there, then I'm currently in discussions with the CCEA about using questions from then. So we're sort of negotiating about what I'm currently able to use, but it sounds like I will be able to use some questions of some description. Yes, there will be a person asking about year 7 catch-up, then yes, there will be a catch-up for that. And it is, the new key skills platform is going to be designed for low ability students who need repetitive practice, but also getting really high quality feedback about their answer and how to do the question. So we'll see that. Yes, I do cover IGCSE. Loads of Edexcel IGCSE papers are there. WJEC, in fact, I think I briefly mentioned earlier that WJEC/Educast are actually adding questions for me. There's only a few papers at the moment, but they're gradually adding them at the moment. Examples, basically, I have to have licenses for the examples. So I have to have permission from them to use questions first. We have certain stipulations about what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. The fact I'm free means I'm allowed to have these licenses in the first place, which is nice. And then key stage 5, there will be key skills for that. But it's all in good time as there's sort of limited man hours. And then you've got the A-level past papers. You've also got senior maths challenge questions, and you've got maths questions as well, which is the missions paper for Oxford for Maths. So there's some really hard questions there at the high end, but plenty of stuff for lower ability students as well. Just resources of note. These are on the resources section, which I'll be showing you, and then I'll get straight to the demo. You may not know, oh, by the way, IB, they're notoriously strict with granting licenses. I've sent them 2 emails, not even a response. And I'm not sure I can be bothered to try and contact them again, but they're well known for being quite protective of their materials, let's just say. So sorry about that. I'd love to be able to use IB questions, but it's just trying to get the license for it. Yeah, full coverage worksheet. So you can download, these are PDFs, and basically I've scoured the last sort of 20 years of past papers and tried to find an example type of question of each type for a particular topic. So this one is laws of indices, and I found very specific types of questions and a good example of each. And I've even written the categorization of each. And actually, that's what the Key Skills platform is trying to do. I'm effectively building a random question generator for each of these different categorizations in my Key Skills sheet. Obviously, a lot more than it's actually there. And also, there's some virtual calculators. It's not exactly an emulator as such, but it's just a PowerPoint. But what's quite nice is you can click on each of the buttons and it will take you straight to the correct slide where it explains how to use that button. You can even click like the menu button and it explains all the menus and how they use at A-level and such and GCSE. So that's quite nice. And I have one of these for the new GCSE class quiz as well as the old normal Casio calculator and the silver one as well. So for a variety of different versions. I don't have it for the fancy the graphing Casio calculator, for example. Mostly because I don't own one, so I don't know the functionality. Other things you probably know about the A-level PowerPoints. In fact, Pearson sent one of their staff to me to sort of discuss about officiating a relationship because they realised that basically I was a de facto slides for the Edexcel A-level syllabus, and they can constitute a very large percentage of my downloads. And you might not know about some posters. I've got a variety of posters which you can print for your classroom, and they're called the Just for Your Interest series. So they're various questions I've pondered as a student or as a teacher. Things like, well, okay, we write equations in this form, straight line equation, but why? So I've kind of gone into that, etc. There's a question here. Can you limit competition between like establishments? Yes, I might be having settings to basically hide leaderboards and that kind of stuff. So don't worry. Yeah, Giles, so you're saying I didn't realize all of this is here. This is just the resources section. Wait till you see the rest. Other things. Yeah, I know I acknowledge that I teach at a selective school, and that's why I should point out a state selective school. And that's why there was previously a slight lack of foundation tier resources, because I don't teach foundation tier. Although actually, because I'm a private tutor as well outside, I do teach a lot of foundation students there. So I've been making a bunch of new foundation tier resources, which you might not have realized are there. And in fact, I was supposed to be making a lot more of them over the last few months, but because of the lockdown, I've actually been concentrating my efforts on DFM 3.0 and such. So this is like on, this is a nice thing on area and perimeter by counting. There's also things like reading scales, etc. Now there will be a lot more foundation tier resources, and I'm sort of gradually trying to do them. I'm also trying to decommission year specific resources, because when I first made my resources, you'll have like year 9 quadratic sequences. And I've tried to kind of not have year specific resources, because I recognize that outside of my school, you might be doing that topic in a different year group. And I've tried to break down the resources a bit more. So there are some like year 7 number theory resources. And now I've split it into separate resources on like highest common factor, lowest common multiple, and that kind of stuff. So trying to gradually break this down. And then for the upper ability, we've got the UKMT database. That's in fact linked to from the UKMT's website. And in fact, you don't even need a login for that. And it's got all the questions back to, I think, 1997 for junior, intermediate, senior. And they're categorized by topic. And what's quite nice, it's the same topic structure as all the rest of the questions that are used for like GCSE, etc. So it's just quite nice to say that if you're doing a lesson on, I don't know, Pythagoras theorem, in school, you can then find questions on Pythagoras theorem. If you want questions on, I don't know, using the 4 arithmetic operations in worded problems, then they're there, and they're categorized by difficulty and by topic, which is quite nice. Yes, there are topic tests for Key Stage 5. I'll be going into that, showing you that later. And then you've also got the Riemann Zeta Club. So these are actually the oldest of my resources. I made those about 7 years ago. And they explore like theory to help high ability year 12 students or year 13 students with the British Maths Olympiad and like university interview style questions and that kind of stuff, stuff that they should know. So, and I still use those resources. I've barely tinkered them. I've pretty much redone all my other resources since, but those are one of the few things that survived in its original form. And yeah, in terms of impact, you might think, oh, I teach a selective school, there's limited scope for value added. But if you just take the JMC results out of school, we had 40, I think about 50 in 2012. And look what's happened in the last 7 years. It's tripled. So we've managed to triple the number of gold medals. And I believe that, I think that's 136. That might actually be the highest in the UK. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that is the highest in the UK of any school. So we made a huge amount of improvement. And students in my school really love practicing the maths challenge questions on my site. I think that I need to update that figure, but they've practiced a lot of questions on the site, just on maths challenge stuff. And my ever-growing to-do list is, and then I'll get onto the demo straight after, and that'll be the rest of the remainder of the time for this meeting. So I want to try and get to 1,000 key skills by the next academic year, and that's going to be a huge amount of work. Like I'm working 7 AM to midnight every day, and that's going to continue until September, basically. So what's great though is because I've got Gated on board to do the coding between the specific key skills and maybe other programmers I might get on board. It means I have more time to then do the worked example video. So I've got to make, well, I've done 3 so far. So I've got 997 key skills videos left to do. So that's going to take that on. Right, oh yes, so that's the thing someone was asking me later. The next big thing is allowing you to create a worksheet of key skills questions. So you'll be able to auto-generate a key skills worksheet, and then once it's given you a particular set of random questions, then those stay fixed, and then you could set that to students or play it as a live game or print it out, etc. Yes, there will be Key Stage 5 key skills for Mr. Lewis Roberts. Yes, there will be, and that's I've hired someone on to actually write some of those for me. We'll see how much he can help. We'll see. Yes, and there's more plumbing in terms of getting that new key skills system integrated. So I don't think you can export reports if they've done a key skills homework yet, but I'll be doing that in the next few weeks, so don't worry. Yeah, I was actually doing a load of Key Stage 5 videos and then sort of abandoned the rest when I had to make DFM 3.0. But I will eventually be doing those. I've pretty much got videos, I've got videos for 3/4 of the pure syllabus for all of A-level now, for normal maths, but I haven't got any applied videos yet, but eventually. And then more collaboration with international exam boards. So someone asked at the meeting last week, oh, can you contact CCEA? And I did, and already we're in discussions about that. But I also want to collaborate with very much international exam boards in Australia, etc., that non-British international schools are using, so it can be more readily used in other countries. Because to be honest, most of the usage by schools in Belgium and Malaysia and such, and Dubai, is by British international schools. Slides, will I be covering decision maths? That I get asked that question all the time. The thing is, we don't teach it at my school, and we never are going to teach it. I'm not a big fan, let's say, of the module. Maybe one day I will be making slides, but I would say probably not within the next year, because there's just so much to do. Right, also multilingual support. So in fact, with WJEC, we might be allowing questions in Welsh, and don't worry, your English students won't be suddenly getting questions in Welsh. There will be bilingual functionality built in. So if the student says they speak Welsh, then they can get Welsh questions, otherwise they don't. So there'll be internationalized versions. Oh, and Desmos integration. So Desmos, in fact, contacted me saying, oh, can you use our API? And it looks like I've looked into the API for that, and I will be using it eventually on the platform. So particularly for new question types, like sketching quadratics, for example, and apparently they allow box plots. So you'll also be able to have drawing box plots questions as well. So that's something that will be coming in the future. Yeah, I'm sort of currently, yeah, I'm not really in it for the money, and I actually started the process of registering with charity. I've got my trustees now, which is good. So that's something that'll be happening in the future. I also I'd quite like to get rid of ads. So I hate the ads as much as you do. They're quite minimal, I have to say. I could have a lot more ads on the site, but I don't. If I convert to a charity, then I'll be looking at my funding model. So I'm not going to be charging, don't worry, because that's a very important part of the site. But for example, do I get sponsorship from some big names? Or do I take voluntary donations, that kind of stuff? So we'll see about that, and sleeping as well, because I don't get enough of that. Right, okay, over to the demo. I hope that's clear enough so far. And yeah, feel free during this demo to ask specific questions about this. I should point out, by the way, that I'm in anonymized mode, so all the names are scrambled. So this is real data, but the names have been scrambled, so you can't see. And by the way, if you want to get this anonymized mode because you're presenting to someone in another school, can you see it's actually here? And most of these options are admin only for me, but that orange option there, turn on anonymize or turn off anonymize, is there for you as well, which is quite a nice little mini feature there. Right, so this is a dashboard. So when you first log in, this is what you see, and the students see some quite similar, but their boxes are a bit different. So the array of boxes they have is slightly different. This pie chart is slightly different, etc. Etc. So this one here is a summary of your the performance. The pie chart, because I've just redone this, is not in use yet, but that will be tied up with the key skills platform. But this button is quite nice. So if you click this, and by the way, this is the weekly summary. So 46 homeworks have been set at my school over the last week. And that's 37,000 questions on, so my God. And those are the top 3 students, but as I said, they're scrambled, those names, they're not actually their names. And if you click this summary by class, you can see, ignore year 3, that's a test class. If I go to year 9, I can see all the different classes in order, descending order of usage. So year 9 set 2 have used it the most, and that's a lot of questions. And those are top students you can see, and the time they spent on questions, etc. So that's quite nice. And you can select the activity over the past week or day or course of the year, etc. And it calculates that on the fly. What else have we got? These boxes we got. Oh, by the way, this is the notification feed on the right here. So that's kind of notifications when a student's done a homework, or they've got a major trophy, or etc. Or I've set to homework. So if I click on one of these, so this person's completed, this is a year 8 lesson earlier, and the JMC they're doing on Thursday, so I set them a JMC paper. If I click on this, I can then instantly see it's gone to that homework and show the summary of the performance for that. So it's quite nice that you can just click on a particular thing here and it goes straight to that. What else we got? We got setting some work, which I'll go into in a second. And we've got the DFM whiteboard, which I'll also show you. So that's like a virtual whiteboard where you can connect with other student screens, and you can sort of import exam questions and then annotate that, and that question will then appear on the other student screen so they can work on the question themselves. So it's a really powerful piece of software, even if it still needs ongoing development. You've got the latest homework here because I set that today, and you've got DFM Live. So DFM Live is a kind of Kahoot style game, but it's just Kahoot is more like multiple choice, whereas it's kind of drawing questions from a large database of maths questions, which are not necessarily multiple choice. Only a small percentage of the questions are multiple choice. And we'll get to play that later, and it's really good fun. You're really going to love that. The key skills platform is what I was talking about. So these fine-grained skills where they get to do repetitive practice on, and there's an infinite number of questions because they're generated on the fly randomly. And the activity log, that's, if I click that quickly, I'm going to show you this later, but that's basically a feed of all the activity. So this student's done an independent practice, which they didn't finish, only did one question. This student's done an independent practice of a junior maths challenge paper. We've got etc. You can see these are a combination of all practices, independent practice of students, but also homeworks that are being completed. Then, is there a feature for creating favorites, making your teaching classes? Oh yes, sort of, because you actually select what classes you teach. And someone requested the other day, could I make sure that those, when you're making a selection from a drop down of classes, that your classes appear first? Yeah, that'll be very easy for me to do, so I'll be doing that soon. So there already are favorite classes because there's classes that you've been allocated to teach. Then past papers, so that's where you can view past papers. I'll show you that in a second. That's where you set up your classes and teachers and a scheme of work and other school settings. Questions by topic, which is one of the first things I'm going to show you. That's where you can build a worksheet that you can then export to Word with a mark scheme, or you can set that selection of questions to your students. And then you've got the resources section. So I think that's what I'm going to show you first. So if I go to that, and by the way, most of these things are in the menu at the top. So all of this can be found on any page. Sorry, right, so if I go to the resources section, you can also find it in this menu here, resources home. If I go to that. And what I've tried to do, I've recently combined, there was kind of a bunch of different things. There was like a topic explorer and something else to view resources. And I've tried to combine it all into one. So everything that's available for each topic is all in one place. So you've got a variety of links here with a nice video by Craig Barton reviewing one of my resources. There's a few podcasts with him actually that you can find on the site. I think the podcasts are under resources and news and media. So my media page, you've got the podcast there if you do want to listen to those with Craig Barton. So if I was to select a particular topic, and by the way, if you selected a scheme of work, I could go to say year 8, if you've set that up already, and then selected terms, I can go to like autumn 1, and then students instantly only get the topics in that particular term, which is quite useful. Or they can actually say, I just want to work on the topics I've tried and I'm not so good on, which is quite good. Can worksheets be shared with other schools? Yes, there is a global folder, which I'll show you later. And if I was to say one piece of part of functionality on the site I've neglected, it's the idea of sharing worksheets between other schools, because of the functionality is there, but I just don't promote it very well in terms of the functionality. So I'll be looking into how I can do that more. It's just that there's only a certain number of things I can work on at once. So if we just select a particular topic, I can go to say, let's go to shape, an area and perimeter. And it's very easy to find anything. And we've got everything on the site to do with this particular topic. So we've, for example, got this foundation tier PowerPoint you can download. So all the slides can be downloaded from here. That's kind of like the static resources as such, the non-interactive ones. You've got a link to the kind of key skills. So this is the new platform I was talking about, which I'll show you. So if I click that, that goes to key skills platform, which I'll be showing you later. Do you need a school account to set a class? Yes, you do have to have an account on the site, a teacher account, in order to be able to set up schemes of work and things like that. So you do need to register for that. And then we've got the individual subtopics. So like find the perimeter of rectilinear shapes. So this is for like the fixed database of questions I was talking about rather than the key skills. So they can watch a video on that. So if I click that, that goes to the videos interface. And then it's got a video of me teaching this.
Hello, and welcome to this video on the area and perimeter of rectangles.
And what's quite nice, if as a student, they've got a link to quickly practice that skill or go to the topic test. Now the topic tests, by the way, I haven't mentioned those before. They're basically mini tests of 8 questions each, mostly past paper questions, where they're designed for students who've already covered the topic and want to assess how good they are at that topic. So, and basically if they get at least 6 out of 8 on that, then they get a topic medal. And there's generally 2 for each topic. So there's a kind of easier one and a harder one for that. So you can see the access to those 2 topic tests there. And you can set those as a teacher. Yeah, you can set topic tests as students, and I'll show you that later, don't worry, when we come to setting work. Yes, I realise there's a lot of functionality here to explain in an hour and a half, but that's because there's a lot of functionality. I don't want to miss anything out. Yeah, the students can access the topic test here as well. As a teacher, you can browse the questions on that. So if I go click this, it takes me to this question browser, and these are all the questions on this. I was talking about Educast, we've got questions on that. But I can filter by difficulty. So if I go to difficulty 2, I'll explain the difficulties later, but it is explained elsewhere on the site. So if I go, oh, you can see there's a lot of questions. So here's a particular question, and then you can answer it. So this is a particularly useful facility if you just want to casually browse questions and then you want to view them in class. So I often just, I don't know, if I want an extra question to practice with students in class, I'd just load it on my projector, and then we can sort of answer it there, and you've got the mark scheme here. And note this annotate button, I will be showing the whiteboard later, but if I click that, that instantly loads up the question in the whiteboard, and then you can annotate over it. So I can then write in these lengths, etc., and you can do working to do that question. And that will be connected with your student whiteboard. So if they've got the link to this, they can then connect with that. So that's a really nice facility. Right, that's pretty much it for the Resource Explorer. So that's kind of browsing everything to do with resources, like the static resources you can download, the key skills platform, the videos, browsing the questions, the topic tests, etc. Yeah, we're getting to, yeah, don't worry, that's coming next. So instantly after I show you just this question browser, I will be showing you how to set work immediately after. Yeah, so don't worry. So the next thing, if I go, by the way, if you click this home button, that takes you back to this home dashboard here. So the next big thing to show you is questions by topic. So I was just on that, in fact. If I click that, this is basically for only teachers can access this. This is to browse the whole database of questions. So you can select a topic here. So top left, you can see here, I click that, you can select a particular topic. So I'm going to select Pythagoras, say. I'll do that. Pythagoras, we've got 2D and 3D Pythagoras. So this is a topic classification for the main skills database. As I said, for the key skills platform, those will be much finer grained. So there's about like 4 key skills just to do with Pythagoras theorem in the key skills interface. So we can select some questions. Let's say I want to do Edexcel only. And by the way, what these difficulties mean, difficulty 1 is sort of like a sort of like the easiest possible question you can have for that topic. And then difficulties 2 and 3 are basically sort of easier versus hard exam questions. A rule of thumb is that with foundation tier papers, if it's sort of GCSE level topics, a foundation paper would be a mixture of levels 1 and 2, whereas a higher tier paper would be a mixture of levels 2 and 3. And then 4 is supposed to be beyond the syllabus. So kind of more problem solving questions like maths challenge, that kind of stuff. So if I just go to difficulty 2, you've got 48 matching Edexcel questions on difficulty level 2. So you can see it's a very large database. And then you've got this question here, and you can answer it there and get instant feedback. And you've got this amazing annotate button as well to load it in the whiteboard. Yes, someone is asking, you're in a school in Oman. Yes, I will be able to create your school, but not right now, obviously. So just pop an email to support@dotfrostmaths.com and we'll be able to add that school for you. Yeah. When making a worksheet, can I select Pythagoras? Yes, you can. So I'm going to show you also when we're setting homework for students, and I'm about to show you that. That's literally the next thing on my list here. You will be able to, when you're creating a worksheet, you'll be able to browse questions in a similar way and make a worksheet. Yes, if you click annotate, that will automatically load this question in the whiteboard, so you can then annotate over it. Right, enough questions for the moment. Oh, and also just a difficult, this filter by text. That's quite useful. I've often used this to try and find specific questions where students said, oh, I found this particular question, can you help me with it? And then I can see a particular phrase in that, and then you can type that in there and then get instantly questions on that. So let's just say I was filtering to the UK Mathematics Trust. If I go to difficulty all, if I was to then type in JMC, then it filters it to JMC questions only, or if I had IMC, it filters it to that. So that text filter is actually quite useful. If you're trying to find a specific phrase in a question you know about to find that specific question, I use that filter all the time. Right, so next thing is setting homework, which is obviously the most important thing on here. So there's a variety of ways of getting into it. If I just go back to the home page by clicking that home icon there, just click the set some work button, or you can see some of the different options here in set some work. So set homework or set an assessment. So if I go to that, set homework, and now there's a bunch of different options. I'll briefly explain some of these. I won't show you every one. So the key skills platform, as I was saying, are like the randomly generated questions. And this is a new platform on very specific skills. And it's particularly intended for repetitive practice. The you choose the questions, which we will do, is where you get to build a collection of questions, which you could then export if you want to Word. And we use that to actually make our printed assessments at schools. Or you can set that to students, and I will show you that in a second. Past papers are like a massive collection of past papers. I will show you that, Edexcel, etc. And then you could, if you wanted to, amend those papers. So you, for example, could abridge the paper to get rid of every other question and then set that to your students. And I often did that for my year 11s. So in the run up to GCSE exams, obviously not this year, and I would set abridged papers to them during class, for example, or I would set one per week for homework as well. Automated homework is an option I'm not going to say I'm phasing out, but I don't personally use anymore. So that basically picks questions from the main fixed database of questions, like all the exam questions, etc., and user contributed questions. And you select a bunch of filters, basically, like the difficulty range and any filters on exam board, etc. And then basically it will choose the questions for you for each question, for each student. And they might get different, the students might get different questions. So it's automatically differentiated. So let's say you gave them a homework on Pythagoras, then you could select a difficulty range 1 to 3. Now, if a student had never encountered Pythagoras questions before, they would get level 1 questions. But if they'd done Pythagoras before and they were quite good at it and they were level 3, then they would get level 3 questions. So it's differentiated within that difficulty range that you've specified. And topic tests, that's what I was mentioning before. I'll show you this later. Those are the kind of collections that we've chosen at DFM of 8 past paper questions by topic, and there's an easier one and a harder one. And that's if you want to give them a little mini test at the end of the topic, and they're useful for those. And you can see the descriptions of each of these if you forget what I've just said. So let's first set automated one. I'm not actually phasing it out. It's still going to be there. It's just that I like to have control over my homework. So I either like to set the questions myself, Or if I wanted a bit more randomness, I would probably now set a key skills homework. And as I said, there's lots and lots more of these key skills being developed by the day for September, because it's still random questions, but it's a bit more fine-grained. So you kind of know exactly what kind of questions they're going to get. Whereas if you've got like questions on, like, I don't know, sine cosine rule, there's still quite a breadth of questions, and it can be off-putting to students unless you finish the topic. So if I'd finished the topic, then I might use this because I want that breadth of questions across the topic. But if I want something a bit more specific, then I use the first two options, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm going to show you how to do an automated homework. If I click that, you've got a bunch of filters. So you can select from your scheme of work if you set it up. And I must admit, I cover setting up the scheme of work in the advanced session, which you can come to on Friday if you wish. And don't worry, I will be setting a key skills homework as well. I definitely want to show you that. But let's just set a homework on, what have I said here? So let's do it on, I said I'm going to set it on, doesn't really matter, expanding a single bracket. So let's do that. Click expand on algebra, expanding brackets, expanding a single bracket. And then someone in fact asked that same White-Rose question another session. They're sort of a private company, so I wouldn't be able to use that without their permission. And then difficulty range, I was explaining these earlier. So if I do levels 1 to 3, if a student never encountered expanding brackets questions before, they would start at level 1. I can filter to a specific author. Warn when wrong basically gives them a second chance at each question. So provided that it's not a multiple choice question, because I don't want them to have a second chance if it's multiple choice, it will say, wink, wink, you may want to reconsider your answer. And they get a second chance at that. And it does, by the way, log the first answer, although that's not currently displayed to teachers, but I will be working on that. But that first answer they had a second attempt is actually logged. Prevent reattempts, that basically means if they get to the end of the homework and want to basically redo it to get a better mark, then they can do so. By the way, if they redo a fixed question homework, then because the questions are fixed, then they basically only redo the questions that they got wrong. And then we've also got require videos to be watched. So if there's a expanding single brackets video, they will be required to watch that video before they start. Require working, I was talking about earlier, that basically means they have to show they're working on the little mini whiteboard, which, oh, go away, which we'll have to do later. And then completion criteria, you can either require them to a fixed number of questions, or you can have a certain accuracy. So you can say they've got to get 4 out of the last 5 questions right. You could say a particular difficulty level, or you can just say at any difficulty level. And by the way, this preview questions button, although the questions are sort of like selected randomly for the students, you can still see the pool of questions that the students would actually have. Sorry, look, I just need to, someone's trying to Skype me, so I'm just going to get rid of them. Right. So if I select that task, I'm going to do that with, say, fixed questions, and I'll set that. And oh, I haven't selected my class. If I just select my test class, so you can have multiple, sorry, this is all scrambled because it's in anonymized mode. That's my test class. You can select multiple classes. So if you select another class, I could then add another class to that as well. But I'm going to click OK and then set task. And it's what this warning is basically that because in the main question database, certain questions can have multiple skills attached. So it might be that a question involves expanding out brackets, but then they have to simplify it, which also involves collecting like terms. So, and by the way, that question about how many do you have to go to move up a level, I think it's about 5. I can't remember exactly. So I might want to allow collect like terms, etc. Now this seems quite an annoying list, but once you've selected it, you won't have to do it again for that class. And if you set up a scheme of work for class to say, these are the skills the students expected to know, then it won't warn you about those skills because it already knows that the students know those skills. So it's absolutely fine for a question to combine expanding brackets with collecting like terms. There is not a select all. There's a very good reason for that, because otherwise a teacher would just probably blindly click it, and then there would be all sorts of weird stuff like multiply and divide serves. I imagine setting that to year 7. You don't want to do that. So I don't want teachers to be able to collect select all for that. Right, so if I just quickly do that, select task, and then it's loaded the progress interface where I can now see that task on the right, which I think is covered up by my face. There it is, expand a single bracket, etc. But I'm going to show you that interface a bit later. Right, so that's one way of setting homes. Can you go right back to the basics of setting up a class? Yeah, if you go back to the home thing here, set some work, and then remember you have these options and you select one of the options. And we just click the automated homework. Yep. So that was one particular option for setting homework. So that's automated homework, which, as I said, I don't actually use so much anymore myself. Next thing to show you is how you actually create a set of questions yourself. So if you go to you choose the questions, it then brings up this interface here and explains, once you've chosen your questions, you can set your work. Yep. It's really kind of very intuitive, this interface. So you can choose a question here, you press plus to add questions, and then you've got this set to students button here. So let's choose a question. I'm going to do it on fractions. I just click that box. And can you see this is very similar to the browse interface? So if I select filter by topic, and then let's go to number, let's do fractions, and then go to find a fraction of amount, say. And then I can select a question. So it's an EduCast one, use question. And then you can see that there's that question there. Then I can add some more questions, so do plus, etc. And you can also drag these around once you've chosen the questions. So if I select, let's just choose 3 questions. And then I can filter to, let's say, OCR. So these are all the fraction questions for OCR. It's a slightly hard one. That thing you see in the background, it's auto saving it. And then click another one. Oh, and can you see for certain questions, there's a really nice button here, use all parts of the question. So that will then get all the parts of that exam question as well, but I'm not going to click that now. So I've now got these 3 questions, etc. How do I select just fractions without going into the subheadings? You can't. But the thing is, once you go to add another question and click choose a question, it's already saved that. So when I click that again, it then goes straight back to this, and you can quickly switch between topics. So if I want to, I don't know, understand equivalent fractions, there's not that much left, don't worry. And then I can select a question on this. So that's simplifying your fractions, just use that. So I've got a worksheet now, and if I want to save that, I can now click save. You need to save it before you set it. It will warn you if you click that button. So I'm going to save that now. So go to save. And then it's asking you to give it a name. So obvious stuff here. Good point, Evelyn. It doesn't actually show the question author to students. And in fact, when you go to set it, there's actually a message there which explains that the students won't see those tags. So don't worry about that. I've already thought of that. So let's say it's fractions homework sheet. And then you can select where it's, I'm not going to go into detail about the file directory structure, but everyone has an automatic individuals folder within their school, but you can select it to say, I don't know, have it in a shared school folder. And there's sort of folders which should be already created for your school when you first register. Permission settings as well. I'm not going to go into that. But now I've saved the homework. It's saved. You can see the sort of directory structure here on the left, the Tiffin school, individuals, me. And then let's set it to students. Oh, in fact, let's first export it. So export to Word, there's some options there, generate. And then if I go to that worksheet, you will see that I've now got this worksheet here. It's even told me the total number of marks. That's quite handy. You could print this out as assessment if you wanted to. And you've got the mark schemes there. Isn't that good? Oh, go away. So you've now got that worksheet there. So that's really useful, even if you don't want to set the work, you just want to create a worksheet. So let's set it to students. So I'm not going to finish it because you saw how it's set to students, but if I click that button, set to students, you've then got a bunch of options. There we go, look, you don't see the exam tag. And then you can select again who it's for. You can select a due date. Yes, you can. I showed you that earlier. You can select the particular class. And then if I select all of them, I can then select another class, and then you can see I've selected multiple classes. So I've got multiple classes. And in fact, it showed me all the recent homework I've set to that class, so you don't accidentally set the same thing twice. You can select a due date when it's due for, including a time, and it'll be considered to be late after that. For students not to have the mark scheme with the worksheet, not at the moment, but I can probably easily add that. Warn when wrong, all the same options, etc. Now, because of worksheet, if you set a whole past paper, it could have potentially lots of videos, so you have to select which ones. In fact, it didn't appear there because there was only one skill. Time limit you can set, and I will be building a thing for like extra time for certain students. It will automatically give them extra time because that's been suggested before. And then we've also got, sorry, I just need to, this person who keeps on trying to Skype me. Sorry about that. I had to cheat, but they got the wrong time. And we can also set it when it's set. So if you set immediately, then if you set a particular time, then the students won't be able to start that homework before that time. You can select a particular date as well. And then the accuracy measure is a particularly interesting one. So if the homework, that worksheet there only contained past paper exam questions, then you have the option to use the marks associated with each question. So if it was like this question here, I think is 3 marks, you can just see in the background, then basically if they get it right, they get 3 marks. If they get it wrong, they get 0. But you can subsequently after, particularly if you've required them to show workings, which is what we've done for our end of year assessments, you can then revise their mark and update it to give them like 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3. Yes, when students get it wrong, it does show the mark scheme, unless you set it to assessment mode. So the assessment mode is more intended when you're setting formal tests. And basically students won't get feedback after each question. They won't see their mark at the end. Also, it means because they're not getting instant feedback after each question, it means they can go back to previous questions they submitted and revise their answer before the final submit of their overall assessment. So we use that for assessments. And notice, by the way, if you clicked assessments, then it's automatically said you can't warn them when they're wrong, because you don't want to give them a second chance if you set them an actual exam, under exam conditions, basically. So those are a variety of options there. Right, now I'm going to try and speed up because I've only got 50 minutes left of the demo. Then next thing is, actually maybe I'll explain that. Then past papers, so I could get to it from this menu here, but you can also get it from questions, past papers. Yeah, I will be setting up a class. My cat's just appeared from behind me. I went to questions, past papers, and then I could go to say, I don't know, like AQA, and then click a particular paper, and there we go. You've got a particular paper here, AQA paper, and then I can select edit mode, and then I can drag around the questions. Like if I click a question, I can replace it with a separate question. I can delete questions if I want to abridge the paper. And then if you save your own copy using save as, you can then set that modified paper to your class. So I use that a lot when I'm doing sort of revision assignments. Alex, so you see there's already quite a lot, but it's just a sort of a case of limited man hours in terms of this. So we're trying to work on it. So that's all the kind of stuff with like selecting certain questions. Then let's go on to quickly, the key skills interface I want to show you. So that's the amazing new thing, which you're going to love this. So if I go back to the home page, you can get this from, if you go to set work, you'll be able to get it from there as well. If I click key skills. Now I'm still working out like what students see and what teachers see. This is actually the key skills I've done myself as a teacher. So you can see I've started faulting them, etc. Because I've set up schemes of work, I can quickly get to skills there. And the key skill cleanup is nice. So students will see this as well, but basically students can do a little mini assignment of 4 questions that they've previously got wrong and redo those questions, which is quite nice. They also see that on their main home dashboard as well, and also recent activities, so like what students have been doing specifically on the key skill platform. But if I go to say, I want to go to trigonometry, because I've actually made some questions on that. My cat is literally sitting right in front of the monitor and I can't see anything. Here's trigonometry ones, specific key skills. And then you can see I've actually made some videos for this, and I've tried to make these videos short because they're they're specific to a specific skill. So if I click that, you can see, I think I've already started this. Yeah, it's tried to remember where I've been previously on the video. And then, so this one, as I said, they're very specific. So this is literally just labeling sides of a triangle and a right angle triangle. And then it sort of builds up to the harder things. So you can see just for trigonometry, there's already a lot of key skills and we're still making more. And these videos, you can see most of them are grayed out, but every key skill will have a worked example video. Like that's one on just using sine, cos and tan to find an unknown shorter length. So a video on that. And I've generally tried to set a time limit of 4 minutes. So I try not to go over 4 minutes. This one I did slightly, but it is the first main video on trigonometry. And then let's just say I've selected a few of these. This is brilliant. Like if you just want to get a random set of key skills questions, if I select preview, it's generated random questions on those so you can see what the questions would be like. And there's a nice refresh button here, which I've done since last week, which will give you a new set of questions. So that's just great for class. If you want a random set of questions, then you can see it gives you feedback. So I'm just gonna get this wrong, but you can see that's dynamically generated feedback on this random question, which explains how to do it for the student. So if I go back, I then can set to students. If I set to students, very similar interface to before to set students this work. And the one option that wasn't there before, and I've done this since last week, is interleaving skills or not interleaving. So basically, if you've selected multiple skills and you select interleave, it will basically rotate between these 3 skills. And particularly if I set an accuracy requirement, basically, it will rotate between the skills until they've got the last 4 out of 5 questions right on that particular skill. And then it will only cycle between the key skills that they haven't yet made that accuracy criteria, if that makes sense. If you don't interleave, basically, it will give them questions on this first skill here until they've met their accuracy requirement. And then and only then it will go on to the next key skill, etc. Can you interleave on different topics? Trig and surds, yes. If I go back to, click back here, quick access. If I go to complete list, you can see all the topics here. Now these will be ordered in a more sensible order soon, but you can get them all here. But to be honest, where you'd want to combine skills is because you put them together in the scheme of work. No, sorry, I can't allow schools for private tutors, I'm afraid. So if I go back, if you set up a scheme of work like year 8, and by the way, if you're wondering, I keep on saying about this, if you go to cog icon, manage schemes of work, you can set it up there, but I'm not going to go through that in this session. You've then got all the topics in a particular term, and then it's much easier to select the skills from that particular week of lessons, if that makes sense. So it'd be much easier to do that there. So you can select topics in a variety of ways. You can either select skills from the left, or there's a full list of skills, or you can do it by scheme of work if you set that up. Or if you're a student, you can select all the skills that you need to work on. So if I actually practice one of these, so you can actually practice it as a student. So if I go back to trigonometry, and I go to just some easy ones here, and go to have a go. Now this will make it appear like it does to a student when the student's doing the homework. So you'll finally get to see what the interface is like for a student. Then you can see the whiteboard on the left where they can do their workings, and then they answer the question, and you can see, look, there's the worked example button there, where it'll then pop up within this page. And then what X there is the adjacent. So if I submit the answer, it's then giving me instant feedback. And look, oh, I've got a key skill point. And basically it's really simple. If they get it right, they get 1 extra black square. If they get to 6 correct, they get to complete. And if they get to 10, they get to master. Yeah. Yes, students in China can access it, although there's been some problems with certain parts of mainland China blocking certain parts of my site. And believe it or not, I have spoken to the Chinese embassy about this, and they've just told schools to directly contact them if they have problems with that. Yet the working is saved, provided that you set the working to require working to yes, or there's also require working optional. Now, if it's set to optional, then basically if they've drawn something, it will save that and you'll be able to see that as a teacher, but it won't require it if they didn't, basically. So that's how it works. You saw that how that works. So, and I think I've shown you enough of the key skills interface, but I think this is really nice. And in terms of the array of key skills that are available, like if I go back to this, like histograms, for example, that Gaten has been adding this week. So data handling, I hope he's made this live, data representation, and then I can hopefully see histograms. Has he put it there? Yes, fine. If I preview that, then look, randomly generated histograms question, and then look at this feedback. This is just quite amazing. Look, that's all randomly generated from this random question. So I think that's super awesome. Then click refresh. I've got a new histograms question. Isn't that cool? So I think this is going to be absolutely revolutionary when it's fully finished. Right, now where we're running out of time, I want to get the main demo done by on the hour so you can then ask more general questions. But I want to now show, the progress interface, and then we're going to have a go at the Dr. Frost Live and the whiteboard quickly. So if I go to progress and then activity log, or you can also access it from the home page, everything's under the progress menu here. So if I go to activity log, for example, I was talking about this earlier. This is a feed of all the stuff your class has been doing, either independent practice there, you can just about see, or that was a formal assessment because that was an end of year test for year 7. And I can just click that and just see all that student's answers to this. And in fact, that student's been awarded partial marks. So that teacher's gone back and given them partial credit, probably based on the working that they've provided elsewhere. And then independent practice as well. You can also filter to a class here or even set a date range. So if I go to say my class, 8Y1, you can see all the stuff they've been doing. So set homework, I can go way back. It's only NA if they haven't completed it yet and it hasn't given them the final mark. There's a lot of JMCs here because that's the stuff I was setting them today, which is why it's JMC oriented there. Then the other settings here, can you see this blue drop down here? That accesses all the different progress interfaces. So if you go to homework assessments, you can also get that if you just go to set work view homeworks as well. Anonymous is under this menu here. So go to this cog icon, anonymize, and that will anonymize it for you. Yeah, I went into that, how you can set to more than one class at a time. So I showed that earlier. So just go back to the recording and you'll be able to see that. So here are the homeworks I've done for that particular class, and then end of year paper. So you can see the breakdown by mark. Oh, I see. Yes, you can, I think. Oh, no. Actually, you can. If you go, I know this is confusing, but if you go to select individuals, you can then select multiple classes from here. Or actually, if you go to the bottom, I think there is, I haven't done it yet. I need to fix this, but in other places on the site, you can actually say all of year 7 there, which is quite nice. So I've clicked a particular task. I can see all the individual answers. So I can click on an answer to this question. There's an answer. If there is a mark scheme, it also shows the mark scheme for it. There we go, there's a mark scheme. In fact, I added that feature this morning. And then I can feed back to the student. In fact, if you click this checkbox, you can give the same feedback to everyone in the class on that question if they got that question wrong. So that's quite a nice thing. And by the way, the overwrite, if I click that again, overwrite, and you can select the mark for it and overwrite that. So that's quite useful. And by the way, this is also a new feature. If you click the question here, it shows the question with the mark scheme there. That's quite useful as well. Oh, by the way, the person who's asking, do we have like mark bits? For these actual end of year assessments, they actually submitted their workings via Google Classroom. So we then, if they got a question wrong, we could check their working to see they get partial answers. This is an amazing feature. If you go to by topic, this is for that end of year assessment they did. I can see the breakdown of how well they did by topic. So I can see they were very good at multiplying single algebraic terms, not so good at the sampling methods question, or, oh, that's a sort of very difficult type of indices. stuff there. So that's good. There's also a worst questions thing. So that will generate a Word doc of all the questions in the paper ordered by how badly they were answered, and it will actually say the percentage that people got right for each type of question. This refresh button, by the way, if you've set assignments for students to do in class, let's say they're actually doing the test now, if I click this refresh button, it will just reload the data, and that just saves you having to sort of like refresh the page or whatever, which is useful. This is for a whole class, but you can filter by individual and select for the data for a particular individual. There's also progress by topic, which I won't go into detail on, but if I select a particular strand, this is for the same class, like algebra, I can see all the topics and what questions students have answered. And if I was to click one of these particular things, I can actually see, look, divide single algebraic terms for this individual here. If I was to click that, it would show all the questions for that particular student. Now, I want to kind of skip the rest. Leaderboards, you can see the videos they've watched as well. The report generator will allow you to export to Excel. That's quite an advanced thing that I'm not going to go into. And the old feedback, which you can also access with this speech bar icon, that allows you to see all the feedback you've given sort of in one nice view. And then this student is sort of complaining about this question, etc. And then you can write feedback to that student from that one particular place. Right, the last few things, because I've overrun a bit. If I go to the whiteboard, so you can access it by this icon here, and we're going to quickly try that, and I'll do this very quickly. And by the way, setting up classes, I'm not going to go into much detail now, but if you go to manage classes, then if you just watch this video, it will explain everything you need to know about how you set up a class. But it's basically quite intuitive. You put in your class name, so I don't know, test class 3, a particular year group, assign teachers, so I'm going to select myself, and then you submit it. If you want to set all your classes up at once, then use the bulk add facility, and particularly if you're setting up the start of the year, you want to do it via spreadsheet import. I covered that in the advanced session. So if I just submit, I then have a blank class, and it explains all the options for adding students. So you can basically give them this link here, and then they'll be able to join that class, the sort of enrollment link, or you can add them manually yourself by doing add students, and explains the process for doing that. And before you ask, yes, you can have students in multiple classes. In fact, if I click continue with these demo names here, can you see it's found a match? There's someone in my school called Joe Bloggs. So they found him in year 7, and I can either choose to move him from that other class or add him to this class, in which case he'll remain in the old class, which is quite a nice feature. And this other person, Dave McBloke, yes, I am GDPR compliant, and there is a privacy policy which you can read in full. Yeah, so you can create a new account on this. And by the way, if students use personal email addresses, you will not be able to see it. So it'll be starred out for data protection reasons. And it knows if it's a school email address or not, because of whether their email address matches a domain extension for your school. And you can change that from manage school settings there. That's kind of quite an advanced feature. Right, the whiteboard quickly. So yes, it is easy to move them. If I select a particular student, so here's an actual, wait, sorry, something's gone wrong here. What's happened? Let me just refresh. My browser's got a bit weird, sorry. I think it's just my internet. Like my browser's completely crashed. I don't quite know what's going on. Oh, there we go. It was just a bit of a lag. If you select a student, you can then click, I'm going to say, sorry, it's my browser. If I select this, I can then move their class. So these are your students and their details. You can change their password, etc. And by the way, the force activation button is if they don't get the email to ask them to activate their account, you can manually activate their account for them. Right, let's go to the whiteboard. So if you click this icon here, let me show you how I got to that. If I go back to Dr. Frostsmith, if I go back to the site. Can you see this icon here? Or if you go to your home dashboard, it's DFM whiteboard here. Now, if you go to this link here, if I type this to everyone, and then you go to this link, you will then be able to see my whiteboard. So if you click on that, and I'll hopefully see you, you'll appear gradually here. There we go. There's 3 of you already. And you'll hopefully be able to see me write. Yeah, so there's already a lot of you. And can you see, look, there we go. Look at all these people with hello. And then basically I can even interact with individual students. It might be not connecting because it doesn't scale that well for because there's quite so many of you and it usually works for a whole class. But I can also import a question, but it should work though. So if I just import exam question, this one here, then it should be able to load this question. There we go. And hopefully it's appeared on a bunch of your screens. I don't know how well it's going to work with over nearly 100 people. But you should then be able to write over that question there. No, you can't. I know you can see a save button there, but that's only for admins. The functionality is technically there, but I'll have to consider how best to do that, but I will eventually allow that. Right, so that's a whiteboard, and you can do that with your class. So basically, if you lose that link that you get when you first load it up, if I click on the eye icon, can you see the link is there? And then you can give that to your students to then log in to your whiteboard. So that's quite cool. And the very final thing to show you is the live game. So if you go to Dr. Frost Live on the homepage, this is great. We can either do it by topic or by worksheet past paper. So if I do that, I'm then going to select a paper. Let's just go for Foundation GCSE paper. And this will only take like 2 minutes, don't worry. And then we can go to questions or you can leave if you wish. Let's go to Foundation Legacy. Pick a particular paper, there's loads here. No, that would take too long to write. Just want a nice simple, oh, there we go. Right, so let's go to, can you see the live game button there? So click the live game button. There's a few options. I'm going to allow guests, so you are allowed nicknames, but you could prevent nicknames by requiring login. Do I want a speed bonus? Yeah, fast answers get more points. So the first person gets 1,000 points, as it explains here. It goes down by 50 each time. So the second person gets 950, then 900, etc. But everyone at least gets 500 points for the correct answer. Or you can not have that sense of competition and they just get the same amount of points for getting it right, so 1,000. Now this is sort of like lockdown mode, but basically usually the question only appears on the teacher's projector. But if you want the question to appear on the student's one as well, then click question and answer input, and then the question will appear on your screen. So now, if I paste this link that you can see on the screen, so go to this link here, and the passcode is 556840. Well, a lot of people here. And believe it or not, it works very well with this number of users. The code, it scales very well. Karen's just put an incorrect code on the chat. It doesn't. What do you mean it can't connect? It should be able to. When you say you can't connect, why does it say you can't connect? It might be because you're on a network that blocks socket connections. I had that problem in Jersey, and in fact, the entire island of Jersey is unblocked socket connections for my site. So yeah, Michael, it's basically because, are you doing it at school, by the way? Are you at school? How do you get on? You go to this link here. Yes, your school blocks the live game, basically, so you need to go into your IT support. Yeah, I'd open another tab. It doesn't really matter. Right, you've got 10 seconds.
I can't join.
It might be your net. It'll be a network problem, basically. I can't do anything about that. Right, I'm going to start now because I'm sensitive about the time. If you don't like the sound, you can just always mute it here. Right, just a few more seconds because you're still coming in rapidly. So then let's go to, I'm going to start. Apologies if you didn't manage to get in. We're up to a lot of users though. I need to add a counter here to say how many people were in, but you can see that later. So let's start. And then the questions should appear for everyone. Oh, there we go. Nice and quick. Look at that. Whoa. Oh yes, I do this live in maths lessons all the time. They love it. Right, let's stop waiting. The answer was E. Well done to everyone who got that right. Dom was very quick in there. You can see it's not case sensitive. It still works. So let's just do one more question. Go away. I don't know what I've done. There we go. Next question. And just one more and then we'll finish. There we go, one more. That's very quick. That's incredibly rapid there. Let's stop waiting. Go on, let's one more question, or is it going to be the same? You can skip the question if you wish. How many faces? Last question. Oh my goodness, that's fast. By the way, you can zoom, look, nice zoom slider. It automatically tries to use the best zoom, but it's not always accurate, so you can adjust it. Right, I'm gonna stop waiting. And let's see the scores on the doors. So if I click finish, it will now show us the standings. And well done, Andy, who has won. That was incredibly quick, by quite a mile as well. And if I click show full results, I can see the entire rankings here and the answers for every question. So yeah, look at this. So you can see all the way down to bottom. Apologies to these people at the bottom. And if you're asking, can you export? Not at the moment, but I will be working on that. Right, that's the end of the main meeting. If you wish to leave now, you're welcome to, and I'll send this link out to the actual recording. But I will be here until 5:30 in order to answer any questions that you might have. I prefer you say it rather than type it because it's quite hard to see the stuff in the chat otherwise. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope if you have any questions, just email jamie@.trostmaths.com and I'd be very glad to answer.
It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Jamie.
No problem.
Really appreciated it.
Great, hi, Jamie. Can I ask you a question about archiving resources or archiving tasks, please?
Yeah, at the moment, we can actually archive students, believe it or not, when they leave the school. So they can archiving tasks.
Because I deleted, well, so when you have that feed down your left-hand side,
yeah,
I only wanted to see my current tasks. So I actually deleted all the other ones.
Whoa,
that's
okay.
Deleted rather than archived.
But if you just, the thing is, if you were, that's actually quite a good idea and I will work on it. Partly because you sometimes get a rogue teacher in a school that accidentally deletes everyone else's homework, and that has happened before. So that's a good idea, and I will work on that. But I just note that, remember there was that class filter? So if you don't want to see other people's tasks, you just filter to a particular class. If I go to back to by class, you've got all of them. But if you just select a particular class, you can see the task just for that particular class, if that makes sense.
Right,
but
okay.
I can see the argument about archiving, and I'll probably make it that actually if you delete a homework, it actually archives it instead. So then theoretically you could reinstate it if you did it accidentally. Yeah, I'll have a think about that.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hi, Jamie.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know you said you can't use this for private students. It's designed for school use. Is it not possible, therefore, to set myself up as a student using my private email address? To...
Oh, of course, yeah. I have no issue with people having student accounts wherever they are. They don't have to be at school. In fact, there's an account type called Other, where basically you'd register if you don't have any assigned school. It's just, there's partly it's kind of mostly licensing reasons that I can only give teacher accounts to teachers because of the way that they can browse questions and such. So that's the biggest reason. It's also admittedly just because this is a free site and I don't want my site to be used for for-profit purposes. But if you want to register as a student and access all the student functionality, I have absolutely no issue with that at all.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Jamie.
Jamie, what does the advanced session offer that you don't offer, that you haven't covered today?
Good question. So I point out there is a degree of overlap. And by the way, if anyone wants to sign up to the advanced one, you can, because there are still places for it. But I cover, for example, what do I cover? I'm just scrolling it to now. I go through, the worksheet auto-generator, so how you create a random worksheet. There's certain things which I just cover in more detail. I'm just going through now. Custom leaderboard pages, how you generate those. School stats, setting up a scheme of work, I go into that. How to build your own questions, if you want to contribute your own questions. And just a few other buttons, like, for example, the demo student account button, which I was actually supposed to show you today.
I mean, with regards to the scheme of work, is it quite a simple process to do if you just...
Oh, yeah, look, let me just show you now. So if you go to cog icon, manage schemes of work, you just, basically, if I try one now, I've got test sound 2, for example, free, a year group, let's say year 13. You select a start date, and there's a video here which explains everything that you can watch, save and continue, and then basically it says save changes whenever you make your changes. And then you just add terms. So basically what you do is you select the prerequisite skills. So that's basically skills as explained by this text here. You select the skills that students expect to know at the start of the year. Now, let's say it was a year 9 class. You'd say, well, I assume they know everything in year 8. So you could actually import from an existing scheme of work. So if I click import, it's now selected everything from there. And if I just said, oh, I'll just leave it at that, okay. And that's set up. And you can save changes here. And then you add terms. If I add a term, I can then say autumn 1, select September. And I'm not going to explain this now, why you put dates. It's quite complicated, but I will go that in an advanced session. And then basically you select your topic. So if I select skills, I'm going to cover that half term. I could just say, I don't know, expanding bracket. So apparently I already did that in year 8. Factorizing, some more difficult stuff here. And then also, can you see this is new? But it also populates it with the stuff, the key skills interface I was showing you, the key skills platform. So that's separate, because remember, this is for like the main question database, like past paper exam questions, whereas this is for that specific key skills platform. It's automatically populated based on what's currently available and based on what you selected here. And then you can select these. You can also reorder as well, that the order appears in, etc. And then basically you can then allocate that to a class from managed classes, and that's how it works.
Perfect, thank you so much.
So that's like a 2-minute demo.
Appear for schemes of work that have already been uploaded?
Say again?
Will those key skills come up, show up with schemes of work that have already been uploaded? Yeah,
look, so if I show you a scheme of work, don't want to save. If I go to, I've already done that one. Like this class, I haven't yet done it, but can you see it automatically populated? It's not selected any, but at least it's actually selected the relevant ones that might be of relevance to what topics you've selected. Can I advise though that you don't set up key skills until close to September, because that list will gradually get longer as we do more key skills. We've got 300 at the moment. That's only a third of what we're intending to do. Okay. And the problem is, if you select a bunch of key skills, there'll be ones that are missing, and then they'll eventually appear, but you won't have selected it. So I advise just waiting.
It's not making sense. Okay. It's talking about his maths website and all the resources.
Jamie, did you say that the key stage 5 key skills were delayed? Will they be ready by September as well?
They're not going to be, certainly not a complete set by September. I've got someone who's potentially working on it. He's having a play with the system at the moment, but he's going to specifically be working on key stage 5. But I can't imagine realistically that's going to be done by September. I'm intending to get key stage 3 and 4 done for September, but key stage 5 is happening. It just won't be ready for September.
Okay.
Jamie, is there any way of allocating a kind of a league system? I know I've spoken before about post-16 and repeat GCSE and access students in particular. So like colleges, like I'm in deep Worcestershire, but we.
So you want the league system? Because I think someone earlier was saying we don't want that competition, or maybe I've misread that. So basically, I can actually group schools together in a trust. Now, I suppose I could theoretically make an imaginary trust and group schools, but there's actually a leaderboard for schools within a trust. So you can see, and there'll be a leaderboard of like the best students within the trust, but also a leaderboard by school within the trust as well. So that's the only way I could feasibly do it.
Right. It's not possible to say have post-16 colleges.
At the moment, no, but theoretically I classify schools by their type. So I suppose I could, but it's not a case of building in the functionality to do that.
Yeah, I know it's probably not desirable, but especially now that students have to keep repeating until they get the GCSE, you know, and also some of the access folks, you know, it can be very demoralising seeing the young whizaroo 15, 16-year-olds getting huge points and obviously nowhere near themselves.
Yeah, sure. So but you can always email me about that just to discuss.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Jamie.
Hello.
Just a quick one. You know, things like graphs and construction type work. It's quite difficult to do that online. Is that something that you've got a handle on, or is it similar?
Yeah, it's amusing because we a year 9 topic in the scheme of work is constructions and loci, and I've had a really good question, which is actually from a kangaroo once, and it was like a wheel goes over this mountain range. Like, what is the shape of the loci of the centre of the wheel? And it was a multiple choice question that they had to pick from the different images. But in terms of drawing constructions, I just don't like. Even though that on the whiteboard there's like a circle tool and there's like an arc tool. Oh, that's everyone again appearing. And then there's an arc tool, etc. I still like. How would you mark that? I just don't know. I think I suspect it would be too difficult. I'd be interested to know if anyone's actually done like a question marking system to do with constructions, but I suspect like the amount of effort it would require to do something cool for that wouldn't be justified by the fact it's a very specific topic.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for your answer on that. Thank you.
Okay.
And students use the website on their phones generally and specifically with that live game?
Yeah, certainly, particularly the live game in particular is particularly designed to work well on a phone or a tablet device. And indeed, all the sort of student functionality is supposed to be work nicely from phones. There's certain things like the manage schemes of work interface that, like, to be honest, you should be doing on a proper computer, but it's not phone enabled. But pretty much all the student facing interfaces and most of the teaching interfaces actually are viewable on phone as well, and they look good on a phone.
Fab, thank you very much. It's a fantastic website. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Amy, can I ask about the whiteboard?
Yeah.
I'd love the fact that the students can save their working, but I see that on your presentation you've got load, save as, preview. So I'm assuming that as a teacher I could write on there and save my I write on the whiteboard.
Yeah, I was talking very fast earlier because I was in a rush, but I briefly mentioned that was for admins only. The reason we use that, and I'll just show you a kind of behind the scenes thing. If I load this is actually for all the key skills diagrams. So you remember those randomly generated diagrams you saw earlier? Yes. If I go to like area, try 1, like that's one of the diagrams that's used for the key skills. And that's why we have these interfaces. So then that allows us to generate the images for the key skills.
Okay, so I can't actually save anything that I draw.
No, you can't.
Right, okay. Thank you.
But the thing is that the functionality is sort of there. So theoretically, I could include that functionality in the future, but at the moment you can't.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie, did you say it interfaces with Google Classrooms?
No, someone from every session has asked me that so far. It's a very common question. At the moment, no, but there's nothing stopping me doing that in future. It is on my list.
Good.
It's a very long list.
Yes, you've got, and you've got to sleep as well.
It's on my list.
Yeah.
Jamie, one of the colleagues asked last week, and it was covered in today's session, whether you can set up the White Rose scheme of work. Maybe he misunderstood your answer because he gained the impression that that was in the process of being added as a set scheme of work.
No, I definitely didn't say that. I said that theoretically, if someone wanted to get White Rose in touch with me about permission to do that, then I do so. I certainly wasn't. I certainly didn't give the indication that I'd already contacted them.
No, he's obviously misconstrued what you said. I'll get in touch with him and clarify that. Thank you.
That's just a bit of a thorny one because they're, although a lot of their resources are free, they are still a private company. So, yeah.
Hopefully they'll get on board with you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
No problem.
Yeah. Is it possible, please, to tell us how to book an advanced session as well, as it was so excellent?
Yeah, just go to, I'll put the link in here. If you go to drfrostmaths.com/virtual events, because I don't know how you signed up in the first place, but it's the same. Oh, wait, sorry, it's trying to message a particular person, everyone in meeting. If you go to this, then you can go to the advanced one. As I say, a lot of it is repeated, which it's probably not a bad thing, but there is just the slightly more emphasis on certain things and certain stuff I covered that I didn't in this video. And I don't, for example, go into so much detail on setting work because I expect the advanced people to already know how to do that.
That's great. Thanks for your help. It was great.
No problem.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
Hiya. On your the live game, that you said that you set your pupils in class. If you set like past paper questions on there, do they have to wait until you stop them and carry on? Is it that sort of thing, or could you set it at the start and see what they're doing throughout the lesson, and as soon as they finish a question, they can go on to the next question?
No, the live game is specifically such that everyone has to be working on the same question at the same time.
Right. Okay.
That's very much a sort of intrinsic property of that game, just like it would be with, say, Kahoot. And that's not really going to change. Like, if you want to do that, you just set a homework for your class with a particular worksheet. And then, as I was mentioning before, you can see the answers come in on using that refresh button and whatnot I was showing you to do that. But as a sort of live game, the idea is that they're sort of up against each other on each question. Unless, of course, although, as I said, you can turn off the speed bonus, so they all get the same number of points if they get it right. But,
no, don't do that. That was the only way I won.
What, sorry?
I said, don't do that. That was the only way I won.
What, where they get the same number of points for the right answer?
No, when I was quick on my keyboard.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It's a bit more fun when it depends. Like, I sometimes do it with speed bonus for my students, and sometimes I don't. It depends on the nature of the questions I'm setting.
Okay. All right, lovely. Thank you very much.
Cool. No problem.
Cheers.
Jamie, can I ask one question?
Go on.
How do we give students login details? Where can we find student login details?
How do you get the students' login details? Basically, if I go to manage classes, and I wish I hadn't rushed this so much, manage classes. If I go to, basically, when you create a class, so when you go to a particular class, and you've created it, you get the registration URL and you give it to them. So there's different levels of interaction on your part. You could just, this might be blank, so there might be no students. You give them that link and they do the whole registration process themselves. And when they actually go to that link, it will say, you are about to join 9FS or whatever. Yeah. And they fill in their email address, they set a password. If they want to, they can link with like a Google account or a Office 365 account or whatever. Now, if you don't want to do that, if you want to give them, set up their names and email addresses, you do it from the add students thing and then do it here. And you can specify their email address, for example. And if you do that, then all the students will receive an email saying, you've just been registered by your teacher, click this link to finish registration, and they then get to set a password, yeah? So it's always the case that the student gets to set the password themselves, and they can also reset their password themselves, because there's nothing worse than there being some teacher-signed password that the student loses within a week.
So it's better to send a link, ask them to register by themselves then?
Yeah, and you can put the names yourself. In fact, if you just put the names and no email addresses, and it doesn't explain it here, then basically you then still give them the link to register with this class here. But basically, they'll then have to select from a drop down of like, are you this person, this person, this person, and then finish the registration with that person they selected. Theoretically, they could choose the wrong person, but actually, we've never been received an email to say that students have been doing that, so they seem to largely don't do that. But you could. you could basically specify everything. So you can put in their email address and their name. Then they will instantly have an account all set up. They will receive an email saying, just click here to activate your account. And all they have left to do is just put in a password. That's all they need to add, if that makes sense.
Do they, for example, if the student uses their private email address, personal email address, is there any like options they can hide from the teachers?
Yeah, it already does that. So
okay.
I think I mentioned earlier, but again, there was so much detail that I'll probably whisked over it. But basically, it will come up here. If it's a personal email address, it will just appear as * personal email address, and the teacher won't be able to view it. And then if your question is, well, how does the system know whether it's a personal email address? It's because whether it matches the school domain name or not. So in fact, I've set this up myself for most schools, but even if it isn't, for example, if you're an international school or something, you can go to manage, here we go, cog icon, school settings, and then you can select the domain email extension there. And that means as long as the student's email address ends with that, it will know it's not a personal email address. Otherwise,
wow, that's cool. Yeah,
it's quite nice.
Yeah. It'd be very interesting if we have a chance to look at what students' screen looks like. I'm just curious about it.
So in fact, I actually had that in my thing I was supposed to show you, but I was just a bit short of time today. If I type in a student name, let's go to my example account, so Jamie Frosty.
Yeah.
Example. I know it's scrambled, but it should say Jamie Frosty because I'm an anonymous.
That's fine.
Click it. Now, some of these you won't see because it's for admin to like edit or log in as a user. But if you have this available, view their dashboard. So if I click that, you will then see what the student sees. Yeah, you're not actually logged in as them, so you can't actually then go to these buttons and do it. But at least see what they see. Now, also, okay, this is the other thing I'm really kicking myself about missing out. If you go back to the managed classes thing, and you go to a particular class, and can you see here, there's a button, use demo class account. And when you create a class, it creates automatically creates a count for that class.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I so wish I'd mentioned this during the session because I have it every single other one. And basically any homework you set to the class will also be set to that demo class.
To that, right.
If I click that, here we go, demo student, and I can see that Miss Rawlinson is apparently the teacher, and all those homeworks have been set to that class. So apparently she set them a homework.
This is very useful,
And then they can see those homeworks, and they can do that, start the homework, and then you can see what they see, basically.
Yeah. You know that you've got a list of students on the right. So if one or two students didn't register, before the time, so I should be able to see their name not appearing there then.
Yeah, and also another problem is that students often don't follow the link that you gave them and just register independently, because if they do that, they won't be in your class, which is annoying. So
but I can tell the student failed to register will not be on that list then. So I can tell
that's
who.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
So if I go back, if a student hasn't joined your class, you can still find them. So if I go back to manage classes, at the top, can you see students without a class? So these are like homeless students. I don't know why it's empty, or maybe because it's so long, it's just taking a while. There are. It's just because there's so many. But these are all students without a class.
For the whole school,
probably because many of these people probably left, and I haven't just cleared them out yet. And then basically, I can then click on a student and then move them to a particular class.
Okay. You can take your own students out then give them some second chance.
Jamie, can I ask if
it's gone off anonymized, so I need to put that back on.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. That's all. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Jamie, can I ask if I wanted to set up a class, because I've only really used yours for your presentations and that sort of stuff at A-level. If I wanted to set up a class, I'm registered with you, but does the school have to be registered as well so I can get the students in?
No. When you go to register, so if I just go to register, the link is on the homepage, so I just log off. Sorry, it's kind of got confused because I don't know why that is. It still thinks I'm logged in. I don't know why that is. Still, I don't know, it's not logging me off. I don't like to show bugs on the video. If I just go to register, this is what you'd see when you register, and then you click teacher, you just put in your school.
Okay, so I've done that.
Then
of course,
type
yeah.
it in, and then you can complete it. We have to approve it, and then that's it.
Well,
Your school's set up.
Okay, so maybe our school is in actually, because I must have done that. Mustn't
I would imagine that. What's your school's name?
The Royal School in Hazelmere.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay, fine.
Although apparently I haven't set up your email extension because that's not appearing.
Oh.
That's not an issue anyway. Like you can easily set that up later.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Thank you so much. It's really been so helpful.
No problem at all. Right, any more questions?
Hi, Jamie. Well done. Fantastic work on the website. It's really impressive. And just wanted to find out, are you planning on including core maths on your website? Level 3 core maths?
Yeah, I was asked that question last time. And it's just a case of like, where there's so many things I can possibly get. Is that a part of a particular exam board?
It is provided by AQA and EdExcel. I'm not aware of any other ones, but definitely for those two. And it's only AS.
My license would include like being able to do it for EdExcel. AQA's license is a bit more restrictive, so probably not for the moment. But yeah, but it's just a case that I've got to find more staff basically to add these. Gayton's the only other person really who works on the site, and he's busy working on the key skills section at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I know it's additional, bit of work for you. So yeah, just was wondering if you were looking into it. Yeah,
but you're not the first person to ask for it. Let's say that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for everything. It's a great website.
Thank you.
I'm trying to. I set up a class of mine. So it's a really basic question. I set up a class of mine some time ago. It's set up there, and while we were online, I just set them some work just to get back into it, just some questions. How does it email them straight away and tell them there's work been set, or do I have to
It does, yeah. So it sends them an instant email to say they've been with a direct link to the homework, so they can start it. But even if they don't get, for some reason, I don't know, your school blocks those emails or whatever. Let's just log in back as me. Then basically they will see it. They will see the link here, so it will appear here to say they have a new homework. They'll also see on latest homework. They'll see it when they log in straight away, but they will be alerted to it. So they will get alert via email.
Okay, yeah, it's just that I set the class up, I haven't really used it with them at all. So this is why I'm on the course. So I know our school does use it in some of the groups. So what about if issues like passwords and reminding them, because they set it up ages ago, all their emails
They've forgotten the password.
I'm assuming they would have. So what do I do? What do I tell them?
There's multiple options. Either when, well, I'm logged in now, but when I wasn't logged in, there was a reset password link here, so they can reset the password. So if students want to reset it themselves, they can. And basically, it will then just, they put in their email address, and it sends them a email to that email address, giving with a link to reset their password. Or you can do it as a teacher. So if I go to manage classes, if I select a particular class, select a student, change password, you can set a new password.
Okay, so I can set, okay. Or I can
either
set
do it
them all
yourself, or the student can do it themselves.
Okay, great. One other question. I noticed you put in some stuff on retrieval, which is brilliant. Is any plans to do something on, not retrieval, sorry, you did interleaving. Any plans to do something on retrieval? Or would it be a case of maybe using the key skills section and then mixing up some questions?
When you say retrieval, do you mean like stuff that they've already done that's just to kind of put it, like, can you describe what you mean by that?
Yeah, so kind of just recap questions basically. So periodically, in a couple of weeks' time, you would look back at the topics you've done over the month and maybe put some, as a starter, maybe just a 10-minute starter, some of the questions of some of the topics that you've done. So they're constantly recapping and you're constantly mixing it up at the start of lessons throughout the next few months.
Yeah, theoretically I could, but yeah, I just have to think about how best to do that.
Okay.
And the mechanics of it. It's often the hardest part is not working out how to program it, but how exactly it works.
Yeah.
Jamie,
Yeah,
sorry, I had one
Go on.
more question. I successfully managed to get on the little whiteboard, which I think is absolutely amazing. I can't believe that. And then but I wasn't able to get onto that fantastic quiz that you do. So do you have a little video that I can link to and watch later? Just I was going to.
I need to. The thing is, I've got an old video about it, but I haven't. Because the thing is, all the interfaces on my site have been pretty much replaced within the last 6 months. So I've been making new videos on like demoing each one, because I've actually got a video of me playing it with my class, but it was like well over a year ago, and the interface has changed a lot.
Looks different.
So in fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a video there. I think I know I haven't put it there. If you just email me, I can email you that video. But
would you? And what did you say your email was?
jamie@dotfrostmaths.com.
Yeah, of course.
Hi. But in terms of how you set it up, that's now quite out of date. So I need to basically make a new video on that.
Okay.
But it's if you want me to show you quickly again,
yeah, that would be great.
Set work live classroom game from there. Or if you're just viewing a past paper, let's say a past paper at Excel, whatever, I'm just looking at selecting anything. Then can you see that live game button there?
Okay, yeah.
And then there's also a link from the home dashboard. You can see DFM Live, and then it explains the options there.
Okay, all right, brilliant. And all the students are already logged on, so the whole thing should work.
They don't need to though, because you can either have, when you set up the game, you have an option between either requiring log-on with or without nicknames, or you can have guests allowed, in which case they don't have to use a login.
Okay, all right, perfect. Good. I can't believe you just thought of absolutely everything. Amazing, thank you.
They
so
even
much.
if they're logged in, there's actually some trophies associated, because I don't see it here, but on a student account, they have different trophies they can earn. So there's a trophy for coming first in a live game. There's a trophy just for playing in a live game, etc. But they have to be logged in to get those trophies.
Oh, okay, cool, brilliant, thank you.
Hi, can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Hi, it's Danita. Hi, really good session, enjoyed it, but I actually missed the bit about the whiteboard. So I know.
You click this. Can you see this button here, the whiteboard looking one?
Okay, so I'm going to go to I'm actually logged in. So shall I do it at the same time?
Can you see that button there, DFM whiteboard?
Yeah.
So just click that, and you will go to the whiteboard. And you'll see when it loads up, it gives you a link that you can share with other people.
How do you share the link? How do you share the link with the students though?
Has the link come up, by the way?
Yeah, so I've clicked it and it says to share, and there's
and then you just basically copy and paste that into like if it was on your screen, they'd be able to type that in themselves. But if you're doing a remote lesson, you can just copy and paste that into your window for like Teams or Google Meet or whatever, so they can then see it.
So, and where do they then put the link in?
No, they just go put into their browser.
Oh,
it's just a URL to a web page.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that number on the end is basically the identifier for your particular whiteboard.
Right. Okay.
So that's past the URL, so it knows to connect to your particular whiteboard.
Okay. Okay. So did you do that earlier then?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
That was the bit I missed. That was the bit. So then everyone just basically copied that link into a browser page.
Yeah, I actually put the link in the Zoom chat, and then people could just click on that link.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got you. Got you. Okay. So I'll have to test that then.
Yep.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you.
Jamie, thank you very much. I'm going to quit now, but thank you. That's brilliant.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I'm actually on the Friday one as well. So
good. Right, I'll see you then.
Yeah, look forward to that one.
See you there then as well, Jamie. It's absolutely excellent. Thank you very much. I've had a week off. I feel like I've learned so much just in the last couple of hours. It's brilliant. All the best.
Thank you.
No problem. And sorry it's a bit like information overload.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jamie. See you on Friday.
See you on Friday. Take care. Right, I think that's probably a good time to end the meeting now. So I'm going to end this meeting. Right, so end. Right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.